Good morning. I'm fantasy analyst at Substack. What am I? Fantasy analyst at .substack.com. Sean Childs, also fantasy on SI. Normally, I do the waiver wire for the NFBC on Sunday, and I write it out and give a feel for what the players should be based on past history and stuff like that. But unfortunately, real life has gotten in the way this week. I have a house that my mother passed away in October. She was at the end of her run there, but unfortunately, I have a tenant downstairs. I need to get out of the house in like 3 days, and he's not moving too fast. So I am going to have to go over there and spend Sunday about 6 or 7 hours and then get back and do my waiver wire. So I figured I'd make a run through this and talk about one league and the players and my thought process and how I approach this and go through it like how I've done it in the past for at least a writing thing. And hopefully I can do this in about an hour and skim through each position and give you a look of possible players and stuff like that. At the same time, next week I got a bowling tournament off Cape, and unfortunately, I think I'm going to get hung up next week too, and I might have to do the same thing next week, and we'll see how it goes and see if there's any, this is better or whatever. Same time, but I mean, it's just it's a challenge. So multitasking, and then football starts pretty soon. But so for those of you that most of you that that will get this email, this is actually the fantasy analyst.substack.com page that most people don't go to this page. It's where all my football and content and shows and I'm just trying to get this thing, and it's just a way to put the information together. There's different strategy content and stuff like that, and for baseball and football. And unfortunately, I will be multitasking and have a lot of football, but I just wanted to show that so you can see that appearance. So there is a way to see this stuff rather than email if you miss it, especially if you're a new subscriber. You're not going to see what's happened in the past. So that's what we have there. So in this main event that I'm going to walk through, it's my second main event. I did on Tuesday after the big main in Las Vegas, and I chose this league because I don't think most of you aren't in this league. So we'll start at the catcher position, and you can see I'm going to use on the NFBC player tab where it just says player stats. So this will give me an idea of what the percentage own of each player is. So, I mean, I obviously can't talk about players that are 100% owned. So you can see if I scroll down here that 100% and we get down to 98% and we go on like that. So we get to a player like Danny Jansen. You can see on this team, he's on the franchise's team, and he's 77% owned. He's had a terrible start to this year. Going to be a free agent in some leagues. He's a guy that has a high fly ball rate that I thought he would hit a few more home runs. I think that he will eventually bounce back, but he's not going to cost any money on the free agent market. If you see him out there, if you have a problem at catcher two, obviously he's not going to be the first choice this week because the young guy from Ramirez from Miami is going to be the top target, and I'll get that out in a minute. The Pedro Pages, if these pages are Paez, however they want to pronounce it, I don't know how the second one there, but Ivan Herrera is going to be back pretty soon. He's going to start a rehab assignment, I think, beginning next week. So he might be a 1 week bridge at best. He's going to cost minimal money. And what I'm going to do for this, when I'm looking at this, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to switch this to week 5 stats. I'm going to sort by at bats, and this might actually give me a better feel for if somebody is, ranks higher with at bats but lower ownership, as like the Pages guy is probably about, let's see here, where is he about catcher two status in at bats so far this week. And he has 15 at bats, so he would qualify as far as playing time as a catcher two. Patrick Bailey, whatever, go down to here. So I'm just going to skip to the main guy here. This is Agustin Ramirez from Miami. Really hot start, 7 for 14. Got a home run, 3 RBIs, and he has a stolen base. No, he doesn't have a stolen base already. Yes, he does. So, when we see a player like this, I know on this team I have Sean Murphy, who I drafted and covered him early on, and I have Francisco Alvarez, who came back last night and hit a home run. And if Francisco Alvarez is in the pool, I think he's a really, really good buy. He should be owned in most leagues, and I'll look that up one second. But as far as Ramirez, we saw last week the player from free agent results from the White Sox, the catcher. He drew a lot of action. Edgar Quero. In this particular league, he was $72 for the high bid and 31 for the runner-up. So our reference point for Ramirez is going to be similar to that. The only difference is that Ramirez has a little more speed, and that's going to be a pretty big advantage at the catcher position. So what I've been trying to do on the Substack page is release the free agent report. And what I want to show you here is, I'm going to look up, the Quero guy from here. And so what up in the top, up here, I have hit Control F as a box, and I can type in the player's name, and he's in 52 leagues. So this is a quicker way than Greg has it on the message board, but I try to format it to make it be easier for me to look at and to write about. And so that he was picked up in 52 leagues. So if I just click down to the first the league. Oops, sorry. Just want to get to this. All right. So we can see on the top line there, $176 for the top bid last week, 38 runner-up, 89, 84, 77, 72. So when I'm looking at this, the reference point is obviously the range of bids and what the mid-range is. So he's done pretty good this week, and he's batting, third or fourth in the lineup. That's pretty good for the White Sox. And at the same time, you want to look at the runner-up bid. So if people are willing to play, 28, $55 on one, it was 58, 55, 39, there's a lot of competition out there for this catcher. And all I have, my reference point for when this league is looking at is I'm going to look at my own league and see, okay, who is looking for a catcher? Runner-up in this league, like I said earlier, was $31. So on this particular week, I would think that because Ramirez started off better, I think his bids are going to be higher. But typically in these events, in the NFBC, in the main event, that they don't really spend a ton of money on catchers. People will take shots, and we're at the point of season where this will be I think the 6th waiver period. People were a little more aggressive last week on players. So my opinion, I put them in E class rating and D class, and I'm not going to put that up right now just because it's going to be too confusing for me to do both of them. It's going to be a lot more expensive and stuff like that. So I would think that some people, based on what happened last week, there'll be a couple people that'll spend triple digits. And if you really have a weakness at second catcher, you really kind of have to make a run at them. And I think, like I said, the speed at the catcher position is going to be an advantage. Even if he stole, I think he has 40 steals over the, let me see, I'll just bring that up too. If I can just bounce around here so I'm not, I use RotoWire as usually my reference point because it's easy to navigate. So I'll just go to him, Ramirez, for quickly, and, it'll bring up his minor league stats. And so basically, just click on his profile. So he had 52 steals in the minors over 1,234 at bats. That's a pretty impressive number. He had 56 home runs, 242 RBIs, hit 219, 269 player. So, neutral batting average, if he got a third of that with 400 bats, he might steal 15 bases. That's a pretty impressive thing. So he is going to be an attractive player this week. Obviously, he's going to be the top catcher. We'll scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to switch quickly to the Mets just to see what his ownership is. I can switch to the team, and Greg's here in the New York Mets. So Francisco Alvarez is 100% owned. I own him, like I mentioned earlier, so we can go back to all. Like I said, we're sorting by thing. So the catcher position isn't going to offer much as far as value. So I would think that Jansen, maybe worth a flyer for a couple dollars short money. Based on at bats, Mitch Garver hit a home run yesterday, so sometimes that's a trigger. You want to fill it in, and I'm due to time, I can't really look at the schedule and bounce back to see lefty righty matchups. I can do when I'm doing the writing, I can look at that stuff a little bit more because I have a lot more time. So that's a little bit about the catcher position. And what was Kelly there? Sorry, I saw somebody down lower. Carson Kelly is all right. That's just on at bats. Just kind of seemed kind of weird that he was that low, but I guess they had a maybe a rain out or something like that. But all right, so we're gonna go switch over to first base. This is I think first base and third base. There's a lot of positions, especially in a 15-team event. It's really challenging to find upgrades. Eric Wegeman is a guy for Miami that's got a bump on a bat, so he ranks third in at bats over the last week going into Sunday. Last week we can look him up. I'll see where he went just for reference here. I'll type in same thing. We're gonna just use that little box that's there, Control F, so I can just put in. Oops, where did it go? It bounced out. Sorry, I gotta go bring it up here. I don't know why it dropped out, but sorry about that. Control F. And so same thing, we can scroll over here, and that's the wrong player, so give it one more letter. So his range, somebody was willing to pay $78 last week, so they really had a need at first or third base. Most of the runner-up bids, high bid 29, second looks like 21, another one at 23, 29, 21. So basically, he looks like he's, a player that was in, probably a high 20s to $30 player. Somebody had obviously a need. So when you're looking at that for this week, did he play better? Is his outlook the same for playing time? And based on at bats and where he is in the batting order, he is viable. So I would think that type of player this week would probably go in the 30s. Maybe somebody's going to pay a little higher depending on their team need. I am on this particular league. Like I said, I'm pretty good at corner in first base, third base, and corner infield. And I think DH I have I think I have Olsen and Alonso and another really good first baseman. I think I actually have Terkelson as my DH and whatever third baseman is. So I'm going to scroll a little bit down. We're still, looking at their bats, 100%. Lamont Wade, 11% owned, 15 at bats, looks okay based on, maybe a DH option, 3 for 15. Really doesn't have much to production. He's basically going to be a flyer for a couple dollars. Matt Mervis is, people are, liking him. He hitting home runs, but his strikeout rate's over 30%. So some people are kind of, looking to flip him this week and look for something else. And this is the player that's going to be the most sought after. Nick Kurtz. He is 18% owned in my league. He is a free agent for the week in his major league debut. 3 for 13, 6 Ks. You don't like to see that with a little walk, but he does have 3 RBIs. He's really a high-profile player, and he, when especially in the high stakes in the 15-team market, you're going to get a guy for 5 months that potentially can have a lot of power. Looks like a really talented player that has upside. I'm going to bring up his stats quickly here and try to work through this. So he is, he's only played one season, and really one season in the minors, not even that much. He's got 122 career bats in the minors, 11 home runs, 37 RBIs, 32 runs, 36 strikeouts, which is about like maybe 1 in 4, 25%, a little high. Walk rate's well over, probably like I would guess, or maybe 15%. And just quick math, a really good number. He's going to get on base. He's hitting a lot lower in the lineup, but he is the best out. He is going to be the top player, and I think that people are going to shove at him. So I think maybe you can get him in some leagues in the 200s. People really, when they look in the standings, if they have a weakness, they're going to willing to pay in the 300s. And then some teams that are just going to shove, and they'll be in the 400s. And that's my speculation. I'm not in a position, the way I built my teams, that I'm going to be able to afford him. Like in this league, definitely I'm not bidding on him at all. I won't even put him on the queue because I have, like I said, what am I going to do? I got Alonso, Olsen, and Turkelson's off to go to bat. good start. And I think I have Encarnacion Strand on my bench, which is probably could be a cut in this league, and it's probably like an Arenado at third base. So, but you never know when you have an injury and depth and something like that. So he is the going to be the crown jewel in the free agent market. I was hoping Lawler got called up because that would make it kind of tricky because he would be another expensive player, and it would make it interesting for the bidding there. Candelario is losing at bats. He's kind of struggling, and Marte getting hot. It's going to be a problem for him. But until Strand gets back, he's still maybe capable of hitting home runs. He's only 14% owned, even though he's owned that much. He started 46% of leagues. He might be worth $1 or $2. Don't know his schedule. Like I said, I'm not going to switch back and forth with that. So the rest of these people are basically, players that aren't getting much playing time. So I'll go back to full season just to make sure I didn't miss somebody that that's higher owned that potentially is dropped or something like. So the Jack Cangeloni guy from Kansas City, he's owned, but he's the people that they want to hold for a flyer. Spencer Horowitz, who I really think he's better option at second base than first base because he doesn't profile as a first baseman. But I think he's going to go on a rehab assignment pretty soon, maybe a couple of weeks. But just a player to keep an eye on. But I don't think he's worth a carry due to upside. And Mark Hanna got traded from, I believe, Milwaukee to Kansas City. I thought he would get a few more at bats. He looks pretty good, 9 for 25 on the year with 5 runs and 2 RBIs. I picked him up in last week's for like $9. Really didn't do much. I thought he would play more. When he did play, they put him in the lineup maybe around cleanup, 5th in the batting order. I thought that was okay. But, when they set MJ Melendez down, I think that's the guy they got as a cover. Veteran bat, maybe not a lot of power, maybe a couple steals, but I guess a player that's worth a couple dollars if you want to take a flyer. And then Justin Turner did a little bit last night. He was 1 for 4. He's 1 for 2, 1 for 4, and 1 for 3 in the last 2 games with a run and RBI. But he's a player that doesn't strike out. He's older, 38. I mean, he's capable of just kind of doing a little bit better. And they still have the issue at third base after they sent Matt Shaw down. So that there's potential there. So at second base, I'll switch back to the weekly period because I want to see list them by at bats to see. Like I said, it's easier to look because you can see these 100% that go all the way down. We can just scroll those. So there's 100%. Okay, I'm sorry, this didn't sort by at bat. So Lennon Sosa is the top player. That's as far as ownership, he's 40% owned. 6 for 22 for the week. He's got a home run, 4 RBIs, 2 runs. And you're like, okay, is this guy worthy of keeping a job? Look at the week before, he was 9 for 23, had 2 runs. He did get picked up in a few leagues, and I'll just go up to him just to see I want to see what the value of that type of player went for last week because I know that he was, intriguing. So he was dropped. Just want to make sure I don't do this. So he was dropped. I got to hit the return button. If you hit the return button, it'll drop down to the next one. So he was dropped 3, 4, 5. 4 or 5 leagues right off the front, and it could be at the back end there. So there's about 15 players that he was picked up, a high bid of 9, a low of $1, and the runner-up bids was 3. So kind of a short resume, and then you got to look back and and sometimes when you if you think you have good players at a position, you lose track of somebody like Sosa, and you're like, hey, why is he getting more playing time for the White Sox? And where is his opportunity at? So I'll click on the depth chart. So Rojas has been out. That's why he's been playing. Brooks Baldwin is a guy that can hit some home runs, steal some bases. He actually qualifies in outfield, so he hasn't played well enough to keep that type of opportunity. In addition, they did lose that Chase Medroth. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher these names. Fortunately, but so they had a shortstop position, so Baldwin could shift over there. So Sosa, because of an injury, has got more playing time, and we'll just look at quickly just to see what his career has looked like in the majors. 8 home runs last year over 351 at bats doesn't show much. Strikeouts 77 over 69 plate appearances, probably, about 5-1, not that bad. And then, he did have a AAA season where he had 17 home runs over 280 at bats. And I'm like, well, there may be a little more power there. But in general, that's, he's a player that is a bridge player that could potentially keep a longer term job if he continues to have success. So based on, that information, I would think that, where he went $9, did a little bit better. He's just one of those, back end flyers. You got to cover and at a position, and you want to take a shot that he's playing well. If he continues, you keep him in your lineup, and if you have an injury, hopefully he can get you to it. Nolan Gorman is a guy that I talked about a couple of times. He had a lot of power, strikes out a ton. They were really hit the week before. I caught him in a 12-team league. Is like, when you see somebody strike out so much, you really get frustrated with these guys. So last week I looked at him, weekly. So last week he had 7 strikeouts and 15 at bats. I'm like, that's too much. And this week, he's got 7 strikeouts and 18 at bats. So that's a really, really high number. That's too high for me. But the difference is that he does have this massive power, and sometimes when they're trying to find their timing at the plate, it comes in streaks. So he did have 3 runs this week and 5 RBIs. So if you had three runs, 3 RBIs, and a home run for the week, I mean, that basically translates to like a 25 home run hitter with like 75 RBIs and 75 runs. That's a productive player. And if you could get your back end players to do that and contribute, that's pretty good. So I think that I would probably go back to him if I need power at second base. I don't expect him to cost a lot of money. Same thing. I bet he probably was dropped more than he was picked up last week. So I'll go to Gorman, and let's see here. Gorman, 18 leagues, drop. Okay, so we got like 3 or 4 drops. We get to him, and it's like 6 people picked up. Somebody bid $23 a 0. We got a 15 to 5, 11 to 4, 10 to 4, 7 to 2. So a little bit of interest. Got a little bit more production, but the strikeout rate was there. But like I said, he will be an advantage at second base, gives you no speed. You're hoping you catch a power streak, and what did he hit? I think he's had in his career in the majors, I think he's hit like almost like a 30 home run hitter. With if he could have 550 at bats. So, but he's going to sit down against righties, and I'm kind of scrambling here. So over 4 seasons in the majors, and only 53 at bats this year, 61 home runs, and almost 1,100 bats. One short of 1,100 bats. I mean, that's right there. 550 bats, 30 home runs. Maybe 70, 80 RBIs, and even chipped in with 7 steals. So he's a better player than should be on the waiver wire. But he didn't reach his potential last year, and strikeouts are a problem. And he is technically a player that will be probably sit against some lefties. But I would think that for mid-teens, if you need some home runs, if you just want to give it a shot, probably like that 5 to 7 range might be able to get him. He's 49% owned, 37% start, so he's not going to be in a lot of leagues. Brick Baldwin, like I said, he had a home run off of Mason Miller this week. This is pretty impressive, and I think he's a sneaky player that actually could do something, especially when I guess I'll go to his profile on his team just to show that I had looked him up. I kind of made a blunder in an AL only league. He was available, and I could have had it for an extra nothing for 1 week, and I missed him, and somebody bid the next week a lot of money. In an AL league, and it's tough filling gaps. But what you like about him is, if I just look at his minor league resume, is that it's 777 at bats in the minors, 24 home runs, 105 RBIs, 41 steals. So you figure that's about 1.5 seasons of playing time. So roughly, 70 runs, maybe 18 home runs. He could steal 30 bases. It's like, wow, that guy hit 283, 175 strikeouts. 500, 700. This 700 at bats would be 4-1. I mean, the strikeout rate's not that bad. The walk rate's pretty good. I'm like, this guy's a better player than I think, and he's just, he struck out too much in the majors this year, 21 and 79 plate appearances. But there's something to him, and he does a qualifier in outfield, so he's a player that isn't going to cost any really. I would think I don't even think he would be picked up in a main event unless somebody was just. And I'm not sure that he qualified at outfield going into this week. So Baldwin, yeah, so he was actually picked up in 20 leagues. Yeah, so high of 18, really a 9 and a 6. Somebody paid 63, 31. So they're probably seeing, that potential of speed with some home runs, a bumping at bats, the extra qualifications. So based on this, and he hit a home run off Miller, decent week. If he doesn't do anything, I think he's a viable player to put in your lineup and see if he can do something, because he will be helpful in steals and he will be relatively cheap. And he's a free agent. And what did I say? In 84% of leagues, starting 5%. We're going to go down. The Tim Tower guy has done pretty good. I still wonder if Lawler will be back. His window is going to probably be closed because it looks like Marte is going to pretty close to get on a rehab assignment. So I'm probably going to stop there because I got to move to the next position and not, waste too. I don't know about waste too much time, but dig too deep in it. JP Crawford's a guy he's got a pretty good walk rate. He's done a little bit better, but power's just not been impactful in his career. So he tends to be a guy that potentially hit for a neutral batting average. The runs could be okay, but if he's not hitting home runs, he's not going to be a really great addition. But he has done better this week. So a filler, a bridge player at shortstop, or a middle infield, and let's look at weekly. 8 for 19. Last week he was 6 for 18, 3 runs, 3 RBIs. 3 runs both weeks, 6 RBIs, and 3 runs and a home run. So he's trending up. Ideally like to see him move up in the batting order, but that's not happening right now. But I don't think that he's going to cost a lot of money. Brooks Lee, he looked like he was going to lose his job with Royce Lewis going on a rehab assignment, but the injury to the Luke Kershaw, or I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that again, but him going on a DL kind of secures a little more playing time. He can shift over to one of the, and Castro's out on that team, but he's an interesting player he was hurt last year. Looked like he was going to be a better player. I think he was pretty attractive for where he got called up. There wasn't much out there, and people bid a decent amount of money, but he didn't end up living up to expectations. And this year he started out on the injured list. So in his career, he looks like a player that could be like an 80 runs, and this thing's loading. We're gonna have to talk to Jeff Erickson and say, why is this? And he's going to blame it on my internet, but my internet looks fine. But anyway, so I'll look at this. I'll skip back to this. Why that thing's doing whatever. Look at that, popped up on this one. So 8 for 17 for the week, 1 run, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, no strikeouts like that. Just kind of trying to get rounded into form. He's a guy that can move up into the line, higher up the lineup. All right, here we go. No, we didn't do it. So we'll go back and I'll try one more time instead of wasting your time here. Brooks Lee, what are you doing here? So let's see. Yeah, we got it the second time. So we'll just bring up his minor league stats. Let's see, minor league error. There you go. So he hit 778 at bats, the same as when I was Brooks Baldwin, the Baldwin guy. Basically a season and a third of at bats in the minors. 129 runs, 28 home runs, 9 steals, walk rate about 10%, 87 walks, strikeout rate not bad, maybe about 15% or so. I'm just guessing on that number, but guy that could hit 20 home runs, potentially get 70 runs, maybe 70 RBIs, maybe 5 steals. So a pretty good option there. Qualifies at 2 positions. Let's see here. I'm gonna go. Where is he? So he's 54% owned. Let's just look quick and see what he was, what he went for last week. And like I said, this spreadsheet I've been releasing this each week. And if you get used to doing it how I'm doing it and searching, you don't have to scroll down and look for the guy. And like I said, if you hit enter, it'll tab down. So last week, I'm just going to slide this, make sure we're looking at the full lead name. But anyways, $19, a high of 13, a runner-up. He lost to 16. He was probably frustrated there. Got a 14-7. So Played a little bit better this week. I think his interest will be a little bit higher in the leagues that he's available, maybe in the 20s, and the runner-up bids would be a little bit higher. And it depends on the injuries in your league. But I think that's going to be a player of interest at the second base position. I'm sorry, at the shortstop position. And he also qualifies at third base. What am I doing at third? Yeah, so I'm looking at shortstop right now. Sorry about that. Because usually goes first, second, third, and then shortstop when you're writing about it. But Javier Baez hasn't really done much this year, but he does qualify at outfield. He might, he's done it before. They're paying a ton of money, but he might be worth a flyer there, just for a couple dollars if you want to stick it and play for a week. Come on, nothing. The Brian Raccio. I think he's a better player, and he just hasn't really done it. Hits at the bottom of the lineup, but not really much there. We'll switch over to third base. Sorry, I'm going to go back to shortstop and sort by the season long. I just want to make sure I didn't miss somebody that was hurt that's not getting playing time. Yeah, so let's see, just do 100%. I'm sorry, I got to sort it by 100% on just to wash out. So Seager's on the DL, so Josh Smith will get a little more playing time. Day-to-day for Fitzgerald. Tovar is out. Colorado fill-in player. I think the Amador guy. I think he hit a home run yesterday. I think off Hunter Green, which is a good thing. So he's a player that's, they played this week. Home run and a steal. 4 for his last 8 in the minors. Let's see. So we'll go to this line right there. So last year, 383 at bats, 14 home runs, 35 steals, pretty good combination, 62 walks. That's a good number. 88 strikeouts. That's about 4. That's 90, 360. 20% roughly. That's a pretty good number. But he only hit 227, which seems like an outlier based on his approach. Hit for a higher average earlier in his career. So, he showed a spark this week. He hit a home run. I know they're playing at home again this week, and they're I'll just look at their schedule quick. Just Colorado. So they play next week. They play at home against Atlanta for 3 games, and they go on the road to San Francisco, and then the following week they're at home. So if you like to play the home starts, he's worth a shot for hit a home run. And I think let me just look at him just to see what he was. He was 20. He was 64. He was a lot of. Yeah, I guess he was dropped more than. Let me just put one more letter here just to make sure I'm washing out some of the. Yeah, so there was only 12 leagues last week that he had movement in. 26 high, 19 runner-up was 2 and 7. So I would think that he would probably be more in that low teen range if you have a need there. The speed at the middle infield position will be helpful. Probably hits down in the lineup, and he's pretty much going to be a player that's going to be a low percentage on. Let me just switch to Colorado and just to see. Let's see here. Actually, so he's only qualifying at second base. That's my fault there. So I probably missed him at the second base position. But so he's 21% owned. That's a pretty viable player. So me looking at the injury player, I stumble back to him. And a lot of times they play in the AL and the NL League. So a lot of these players that are getting called up, you kind of need to know them in advance. It is helpful to play in those leagues, especially if preparing for the following season. So I would think that he would be a little bit higher, maybe 15 or so. See what he does today. If he has another big game, he'll obviously start out a little bit of interest. He does have a reasonable window to start. They got the injuries, second base and shortstop. And he's playing at second base, but he's listed as shortstop over there. So, all right, back to over here. So we're going to go switch back to third base. We're going to go back to sort of my stats here, by at bats. And same thing, we're going to go look for the percentages. 100% owned. A lot of players, not much at third base. Kyle Farmer is qualifying at second, third base, probably playing short too. He's a fill-in for the Tovar. 0 for 14 for the week. I mean, I know my somebody was talking about picked him up this week, but last week, but he did nothing. He'll probably get kicked back to the curb. Miguel Vargas, he's a player that I own on a few leagues. He has been dropped in some leagues. He is a player that I still believe in, and I just go back and forth, and I just debating whether he's good enough to be, rostered in 12-team formats. I think in where he qualifies at third base and outfield, I think that is helpful. He's looked better this week. He, 3 runs, a home run, 2 RBIs. He does have stolen base potential. The last 41 at bats, only struck out 6 times. That's pretty good. Earlier, 3 weeks ago, he had 9 strikeouts to 23. That was kind of disappointing. Just doesn't have the profile numbers that you're looking for at the other categories. He's really off to a slow start in counting stats, and he does have some underlying speed. But the game that he had a home run, it was like a 422-foot shot to left center. So I believe it was second deck. But in his first at bat, he hit one the opposite field to the right center to the wall. So he made pretty good contact. But one day he's batting 9th in the order. The next day he's moved up and he's batting leadoff, and he's all over the place. But he is a player that, he is a much better player than most believe. And I still think he will be helpful in 12-team leagues. His walk rate's been pretty good. If you look at his stats in the majors for his number of at bats, for 600 bats, 14 home runs, 8 steals, 72 runs, 64 RBIs. So he's really kind of underachieved and looks, a lot of weakness. But his walk rate's over 10%. Strikeout rate's not that bad. But he's got this 177 batting average staring in the face. But in his minor league career, he was a much better player. I mean, he just, so you believe in his previous resume. He had 67 home runs in 994 at bats in the minors, 389 runs, 346 RBIs, 63 steals. So that's basically 4 seasons of action. So you're looking at like a 15-15 player, but he was trending forward in these 2 particular seasons, 21 and 22 in the minors, where he looked like, 766 at bats. So that's what like I said, I seasoned in third there, 33 home runs, and he had 23 steals. So now he was looking like a guy that was more like a 20 home run hitter with 15 steals and had 107 walks. Strikeouts rate really reasonable. I mean, hit 309. There's a lot to like there, but I tend to be a year early on this guy, and I had him last year, and he's 25 years old, and he was with the Dodgers, and like, what's taking so long? But in a league that's a 15-team league, and he qualifies at 2 positions, he's trending. I think that he should be a player of interest for somebody. I do have him on my team, and in that league, I don't have him. I missed on him, and he was my mistake in that league. I was going to draft him in the 24th round, and I had floating in my head that Turkelson might qualify at outfield, and I took him, and I passed on Vargas. I missed on him, and what ended up happening was that Turkelson got hot. Encarnacion Strand got injured, and I end up with a much better player than I would have had if I took Vargas. But Vargas last week, so he had 17 interactions, and that could be another Vargas in here just in case. So, but anyway, 6 pickups, 16 high, 0 runner up. We got a 6, 6, 3. He'll draw. You had a home run, you do a little stuff. He's going to be a little more attractive. So I would think he would be a player that would get picked up in the teens. I like him a lot. Like I said, I'm debating whether to pick him up in 12-teamers, and I cut him last week. We talked about Brooks Lee. Jose Iglesias is filling in, really doesn't do much for his counting stats and home runs and stuff like that for San Diego. Talked about Sosa. Beatty got sent down. Clement hasn't got rolling. Had a couple big games. Wagner's doing nothing. Like I mentioned Baez earlier. So same thing. Is there anybody that's on this team? If I go back to the season long and I go to 100% ownership now, is there somebody that's injured and somebody got playing time? So that's what you're showing. So Royce Lewis 100% owned. Castro's out, so we already talked about those players. But I don't know. So that's about it. At really just not much there. I guess I'm sorry, I should talk about the Williamson guy. There you go. I missed it. He's 9% owned. He's off to a pretty good start. I think he had four RBIs. He doesn't profile as a big home run player. He's had a couple big games out of the gate and hit for average, and so I think that he was picked up last week. Let me just go with him one more. But William. So I'll put the S on there. Sorry, I got to go to the O. All right. And we got a runner up. Picked up in 5 leagues last week, 16 to 6, 12-0, 7-0. And he, like I said, we'll just click on him just to see. Like I said, he had a bit, Seattle scored 14 runs last night, and I know he had a big game. He had 4 RBIs. He's got a 5-game hitting streak, and one of them was pitch hitting. He's got a run in 5 straight games that he's played, and he's playing pretty well. So he's got going into the week 8 for 19, 1 home run, and I'm just for comparison, I'll just make sure you get a clear picture of that of what he was as far as the lack of power, and his injury is. I guess Polanco could switch over to third base, but they had Moore's been playing second, and they had an injury at second base. But so he's 24 years old, been in the minors for 3 seasons. So he's only had 4 going into this 4 home runs over 571 at bats, and he's got 1 already in the majors. The RBIs run 77, RBI 79, 22 steals. So a little bit in 4 categories, hit 285. So a player that's decent, but he just, is he going to hit for power? He's done, obviously 1 home run. So, but the window for him start is probably is until I think they have a minor league second baseman, but right now they're happy with Moore playing. So I think he's got a pretty good window to start, and he could be long-term helpful. It's just a matter of eventually does he kind of drag you in power. So he will be a player that will be that would be relatively cheap, even though he did better this week. So we're going to go to the outfield. I'm going to go to the same thing. I'm going to go to weekly 5 stats because I want to see rank these by the bats to know if there's a value here. So Vargas, I already talked about him. Qualifies outfield. I mean, right there, based on at bats, he is probably, and I know there was some rainouts this week. He's probably an outfield 2 as far as at bats this week. So he would rank a little bit higher. So that's pretty good. There has been some little movement over in that Tampa Bay that Rays. They added the Janikowski guy for speed, and they added Simpson, and Lowe might be back, and I think the Mangum guy got hurt. So there is something there going on, and maybe that Janikowski would get some back. But so I'm going to talk about Angel Martinez, 47% owned, 28% started last week. Really, when you look at the season, the batting average is really nice. He's hitting 362. He's only got 6 strikeouts on the year, no walks. You like to see that, but he's his counting stats 4 runs, 5 RBIs. Really isn't much there. When you look at hitting down on the lineup, and you're like, well, right, but where's the batting average come from? Split hitter, 5'9", 200. This guy's a little bigger guy than you would think. Especially with no power, getting at bats. So we're going to go over to him. And he was a guy that I actually overpaid for in an AL auction league about 3 weeks ago because I figured he would get a lot of at bats. And Nolan Jones was struggling. And I thought he would potentially be the future option at second base. The Arias guy got hot. But Martinez, when you look at his minor league numbers here, I'm going to sort this by minor. So his minor league total, he had 1,519 at bats, 41 home runs, 204 RBIs, 235 runs. So that's it's really 3 seasons of playing time. Strikeout rate 334, walk rate pretty good, 16.9. Guy that could potentially move up in the batting order. 42 stolen bases. That's a pretty good number. 15 home runs, 15 steals, and he hasn't shown anything. But the thing is, he was in the minors, he was a 259 hitter. So you, in a way, that you think that he is overachieving uh, in batting average. So it's going to come back a little bit. Even his caught stealing, his success rate isn't really his caught stealing 20 times. But when we're playing this game of fantasy and we're looking for back end outfielders, he does make a lot of sense because he is going to be a guy that could be a 15-15 guy, and he could potentially move up in the batting order, and he's going to be relatively cheap because of his lack of production in the other categories. And so Martinez, I'm just going to look him up. And like I said, um, I think I have him on a bench in one main event, but Angel Martinez, I don't know why that. Oh, that's why it's shifting over because somebody's got their team name with Martinez. So, so drop. All right, there we go. So somebody bid. We got him picked up in 15 or so, 20 leagues. A high of 32, runner-up of 1, 22-0, 17-3, 16-7. We got a 10-6. All right. So did he do anything to improve on his stats? Yes, he played better this week, and his batting average is still there. But the counting stats are probably going to be the key. But like I said, I think that he is a sneaky player if he could qualify at second base. And let me just want to see his qualifications. I think he's only before last week he was only played 2 games at second and is still there. So he needs Lane Thomas to come back where they can force him to second base, where he would be truly an upgrade as far as approach for area. So, but anyways, so he based on his bids, he is a guy that's going to be potentially a lot better than his production. So I would say, if you really want it and you want to go in the 20s, you're being aggressive and you're getting long-term outlook. You like him, but if you want to just do it, put him in for a bridge and see if he catch some home runs or steals and a little more productive. I think that the low team number kind of makes sense. But he's available in 53% of main events, so I like him a lot. Got him in a couple spots. But probably only one main event, and I don't think I played him last week. So Alec Thomas is a guy 83% owned. They sent Jake McCarthy down. He hits a ton of ground balls, and he has a really low fly ball rate, but his exit velocity has been really, really good. He just looks like he'd be a better player with some speed, not a ton, but he's not going to cost a lot. But he's a player that's not because he doesn't have the other categories, but he's going to draw some interest. So after Beck had a good week this week, playing at home, he had 2 home runs in back-to-back games. Right there, as soon as somebody hits home runs, he's like yahoo, we're going to go after him. But for the year, weekly. So for the week, he's got 5 home runs for the week. I wish I would have picked him up for the week. Five solo home runs. Struck out, 5 out of 15 times, even stole a base. That's a pretty good line. So for the season, he's got 18 strikeouts and 43 at bats. And that's really the kind of trigger there is as good as the hitting the home runs, he's going to have that really, really cold streak where he's going to, kind of hit his way out of the lineup. But Colorado really doesn't have much as far as talent at developing outfielders. So he is going to get an opportunity to play. I know matchups kind of favored him, and Moniak was kind of doing something, and Doyle was kind of banged up. So in right field, there's an opportunity Moniak could play there. DH, they can. This kind of still an opening there as well. So we're gonna go look at his really big guy, 6'3", 225 pounds roughly, based on this. In the minors, at AAA, let's look at it. AAA. He's only 198 bats in his career at AAA, 226 plate appearance, 53 strikeouts. So strikeout rate was probably 25%, 26%, maybe 27, 288, 9 home runs over a full season would be about 27 with some speed. That's not that bad. And he only has 784 at bats of experience in the minors, 37 home runs. So, really solid player as far as hitting 25 home runs and 20 steals. So pretty balanced approach there. It's just a matter of making the jump from AAA to the majors. He will be exposed a little bit. And last year with Colorado, I guess that would kind of got me away from him. He had 65 strikeouts in 184 plate appearances. So that's over 33%. He needs 195 at bats to be, 33%. So a little too high, but he's a hot player. And you hit 5 home runs in a week. I think people are going to spend $50 or $60 on him, but let's see what they were and see who the wise guys that got him last week. And, what did they bid? Look at it. Beck was picked up in 2 leagues, 27-1, and 1-0 in another one. I wonder if he was started in those leagues. We'll go shift over here. So, see, sometimes I can recognize team names and see who it was, but I don't recognize that name. But so he will be a popular player this week. Even though he has 7% own, 7% start. That was pretty good. They cut him that week, and he might not have had that starting thing. So I would think that he's going to go, based on the home runs, people are going to spend 40, 50, 60 bucks just because of the power. And it's like I said, I think the bids were a little more aggressive the last week. Jesse Winker, not really much fight for him. Had a home run last week, a DH, kind of a platoon player. A pretty good lineup if he can move up. So there, Jacob Young still owns a lot of leagues. He hasn't stolen many bases. He's kind of a possible out. I know that San Diego has 2 outfielders that were potentially competing for a spot. The young guy, what is his name there? Sorry, I'll just switch to San Diego. He's a big lefty. Let's see, he had 20 home run power. Let's see, that. Or I'm gonna butcher this. Sorry, Tierso Ornelas. All right, whatever. I won't butcher. But anyways, those 2 are competing for playing time. He was picked up last week. Oscar Gonzalez had more at bats. Neither player did much. I think they're pretty much going to be kind of free. Both of them until they do something. Not a lot of. Both players have 20 home run potential. So let's see here. Where was that at? Drew Waters getting more playing time. Still strikes out a lot. But they're giving him a shot. I'm not really too interested in him. He does offer some speed and power, but he's he's been around for so long, he just hasn't got it done. Tommy Pham, and we're here. We are Jake Myers kind of closed down, but he's not in any leagues. And Winker, Young, sorry, Blanco, Palacio got put on the DL. No, that's the other one. There's 2 of them. Sorry. So there's really not much there. Let me see if, those are, the limited options that look like they're picked up. And this is the thing is when you look at these players and you see that little of options, you're like, what is out there? If I need this guy, I got to pay a little bit more. I can't miss on him. And that kind of drives the value. And then if you're down in the standings or lacking power or you have an injury, it just changes the dynamics. And everybody's got a different opinion of a player, and that's the challenge. So Garrett Mitchell got sent down. So that's got to put on the DL. So there is an opportunity in Milwaukee. Let me just double check that and see if there's somebody that I missed, haven't been paying attention to because I haven't really done it. So Frelick going to get playing time. Jake Bauers will bounce in playing time, and I guess Daz Cameron is a guy that was in the Tiger system, kicked around. Really hasn't had much of a major league career. He's 28 years old in the majors, 10 home runs and 396 at bats. He had 199 strikeouts, 1 out of 4. Was he doing, better than the minors this year? And nothing really. 2022 2 teams he started. I guess he was. With Milwaukee, he's been a little bit better. 6 home runs, 18 RBIs. I guess he flashed in the minors there. And let me just go the last couple of years to see what he was at AAA, just to see him not, butchering it. So he had last 2 seasons. He had, we'll say 2 seasons because it's 1,131 at bats. So that's a really bulk season. 44 home runs, about 22 a season with 60 steals. So 20-30 player, but at AAA. Strikeout rate 307 out of 1,200, so 24%. I mean, there's a chance that he could flash, but is he going to get full-time playing time? Went over 2 in his first thing. So I guess me looking in the NL League and he was in a free agent pool, I would think that I could throw a shot at him, and then you could potentially just put him for a couple dollars, put him in. But there is a power speed combination that could be sneaky, but even though he's been really kind of a poor player so far in his career, so that I don't see anybody else there that I'm interested. So now let's go over to starting pitching, and I'm in an hour here, roughly 55 minutes, and I'm just, I don't want to whatever, but I want to get through the whole process of doing it. So we're so 100% owner, and so easier for me to do in the pitching is to scroll through the double starters and whatever we and see who's in the each people starting lineup, starting rotation. See, Arizona, pretty much all those pitchers are owned. Nothing really there. Sears has double starts. I know he's available in 12-team leagues. I wrote about it. His ERA's been pretty good. He's been pitched good on the road. Let's see if he's. I'll just go to by team. I'll do this by team. That'll be a little bit easier for me to see. So Sears is 100% owned, so he's not there, but he's got pretty good double starts. Pretty good double starts on the road as far as his success. The second one's against Miami. Really, none of the other pitchers on the Athletics I'd be interested. Smith-Shawver could get called up this week. He hasn't really between the AAA and the majors. His ERA and WHIP haven't been really that good. I know I wrote about him on Substack and I pushed it out if you want to get a little better in the details. But he seems like he's improving with the strikeout rate, but the hits and stuff are a little bit too high. At Colorado and then the Dodgers, that's not ideal. The Dodgers are at least at home, but so I would probably pick him up to stash, but he's not really my first stash this week if he's available. Elder struggled. Grant Holmes, I thought he would pitch his way out of the starting rotation, so I think that he should be back there. Let me just see what his ownership is. If he's, I think because he was cut, so yeah. He's 100% owned, so I can kind of bypass it. Some people had cut him the week before, but everybody must have cleaned him up and scooped him last week once he got sent down. So we'll skip that. But there's not really anybody identify. I looked up the Braves and didn't see anybody I really liked. Really not much for me on the Orioles. Giolito is going to looks like got him lined up for a start next week. Let's see if he's in Giolito. He is 83% owned, 2% start. So, and let's see what he did in the minors. I think he pitched pretty good in his second to last start. I didn't see his last one, but if you're in that 17% league, let's see, I wouldn't think he's a guy that would probably be, $30. So he had 6 walks in his last game at AAA. That's not too exciting. Gave up 3 runs, back-to-back games, 4 strikeouts. So overall, his numbers at AAA aren't really that good. I'll switch it to show his minor leagues this year. So yeah, he's just not getting it done. 18 hits, 13 walks. I think that name-wise, maybe worth a shot, but I'm not riding him and I'm not chasing him this week, so I don't have a spot. The Ray guy from for the Cubs got a starting job. Let me see. I think that he was picked up in most leagues last week, and he pitched pretty well over the last week. Let's see. Yeah, 67% owned. That's not bad. So last week, like you said, he pitched, I think, 5 shutout innings. That's on memory there. 5 shutout innings. Got up to 5 innings. That's pretty good. And the game before, he had 5 strikeouts, no walks. 5 strikeouts in the other game. He had 1. So he's trending up. We'll look and see what if you're in a league with that he's available. What's the range of that type of player? I might have to add his first name to this. Let's see. I'm probably boring you doing the way I'm doing this, but is he spelling his name? So he wasn't. I don't see him available in any league for some reason, but maybe he was already picked up in every league. But he wasn't. I'm not seeing his price, but I'd have to dig a little bit more, and I don't want to keep going more, wasting time. But definitely a player that probably, because he's pitched pretty good and got 5 innings. He's playing at Pittsburgh next week, and he then faces San Fran. He's probably going to get, that $20 to $30 range. Not really anybody in Cincinnati in a 15-team league that's available. Gavin Williams, Bibby's struggling with his command. Ortiz walk guys. He could get dumped. He's up and down, showed some strikeouts. He has Minnesota, followed by double starts at Washington and then at home against Philly. So if you want to plan ahead and pick him up if he was dropped in leagues, I know he was at least owned pretty much. And he's a guy that when I'm doing that waiver period for the main event, the run, he's kind of gets picked up and dropped. He's actually 100% owned. So ditch that idea. Sorry about that. Wasting time talking about him. And not Colorado. I don't care who you are. I'm not picking up any Colorado pitchers. I'm not picking up any White Sox pitchers. The Smith guy's been decent, but the rest of them, I don't trust him. So I'm not even there. If you want to shop down that lane, that's fine with you. Houston, not much there. McCullers, I don't know if he pitched. I think he was supposed to pitch on. Yeah, so he did pitch. He pitched, yeah, really, really good in his last start actually, because he had an illness. They skipped a start. He got pushed back. So it looks like they basically, RotoWire anyway has them list, coming back in the beginning of May. Pitched last night, 5 shutout innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. And the key here, well, let's see how many if he threw. No, it doesn't say how many pitches. I could look it up on Twitter, but I'm not going to go there because there. So 5 innings he's pitched. He looks like he's ready to go. Let's see where he is ownership wise. I've got him a lot. So McCullers is still, he's only 30. Oh, so he's a 32% owned. So he might not be in many player pools because of, he's, those people picked him up before or drafted him. So they're carrying him. So he's not in the players pool. But let me just see if he was there in any leagues, if he slipped through. Yeah, he actually, you know what? Yeah, I think he was 5. So maybe he was. I think he was dropped in a league last week, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh, there he is. All right, so he was 17 to 12. Come on. He was in one league. He was 17 to 12. So I don't know if he's out there, but I would think that if somebody's pretty sharp, that they would probably take a shot on him. He should be up next week. Injury-prone guy, but he has some talent, and I would think that he is helpful this year, and we'll see what happens. I have him on a couple benches. I picked up him and Abbott early on, or drafted him and helpful. Let's see, nobody else on Kansas City. All right, the Angels. Hendricks is really kind of going in the wrong direction here, giving up so many base runners for a guy that's a soft tosser that I don't know. I think I can't say half the, a lot of old guys in the NFBC, but, maybe Masato, if he ever listens to this, he might be able to, he can't throw that hard. I bet he can't break 43 miles an hour. But anyways, but for a guy that doesn't throw that, he had 12 walks, 13 strikeouts, 20 hits, and 23 innings, giving up 4 home runs. His last year is EPA 5.92. I mean, he's done. Put a fork in him. Get rid of him. Cut him. I don't know what you're paying him, but you're wasting time. But the guy that they need to get in their starting rotation is Detmers. I mean, his talented guy arm that potentially, down the road, when he figures out his command and cuts down on his strikeouts, I mean, this guy could potentially win a Cy Young, and I could see him pitching for the Dodgers or something. But Detmers' last 3 appearances, peak pitch count was 39. I wrote about him, so I know some of these numbers here. 38 pitches, sorry, but last 3 starts, 8 strikeouts in 6.2 innings, 5 hits, 1 walk, 1 run. What's not to like about that? He was really, really bad last year. 6 ERA, 1.56. But I mean, he still had 109 strikeouts in 87 innings. The year before, 168 and 148.2. And the year before, he had 122 and 129 innings. And that year in 2022, we kind of liked him as a young player with a 3.77 ERA, 1.21 WHIP. I mean, the guy still has potential. 25 years old. He's a lefty, and lefties have 9 lives. I mean, this is the week to get a type of guy like that. I would be surprised if he was even. I looked at my leagues, and I don't even think I can bid on him in these leagues, anyways. But drop, pick up. So we got somebody liked him over here, $37, and we got a 37, a 12, and a 1. So the 37 is a bid to own. The guy liked him, put a stamp on him. The other two, obviously the last guy that got him for $1, we might have had him down in a thread. And I'm trying to see if that I don't recognize the name of the person there that drafted him, because you can. Oh no, that's a guy that's a legend. That's Zach Greinke. But yeah, so that's a good pickup for $37. Like aggressive, but looking for help. But he is going to guy that probably isn't going to get a lot of attention. He's going to need 2 more starts to get stretched out to pitch, 5 innings. He probably have to go from 38 to 50, and then maybe he can maybe get to 55 and then get to 70. But he's going to take a couple of starts. I know my friend Jim Ferrari is cheating the starting pitching. If he ever listens to this, he should be identifying him as a possible flyer, because you need outs in innings, and he could potentially improve. But so that is a guy that you should be picking up this week. And your range is obviously, how strong is your pitching staff, and do you have bench spots, and can you carry them? So there's a lot of factors there. The Dodgers starting rotation. So we got Gosselin coming back this week, and he's not going to be. He is. Let's see here. I would imagine. Probably isn't many leagues. Yeah. So he's in 16% of leagues, but the same thing. He's probably drafted. I can't imagine him being picked up last week. So I don't think he's available. But if he is, let me see. Guns. Oh, he is. Somebody at main event. Whoever's in that one. He got dropped in that league. He got dropped in that one, so he will get picked up this week, and he got dropped in that one. So, hey, flipped him for Jordan Lawler. So he's dropped in 2 leagues. I would imagine that he would probably be a player that would be like that $20 to $30 range. He pitched pretty good in his starts, and I'll bring him up quick there for you. Let's see here, Tony Gonsolin. Let's see, where are you? All right. He last 2 starts, I think he got So last 2 starts he pitched 4 or 5 innings. He gave up 8 strikeouts in 9 innings, 5 runs, 13 base runners, 2 home runs. But he is moving to the Dodgers. He does have some talent. Just look at what he did in 2022, 2.14. Less than 0.87 WHIP. But they have a lot of, and especially with Snell getting backed up there because of an injury, he's going to have a chance. I'm going to look at the Dodgers depth chart. So it seemed like Ohtani, they haven't really kind of pushed him up enough. So Glass. So Glass now got pushed back a little bit. So and Ohtani's not in there. So they kind of piecemealing it based on who they have listed. They have the reliever listed in there. As far as Miami, not much there. Milwaukee, Myers returned last week. He got picked up. Priester's going to get knocked out. He got drilled last week, and I know a lot of people picked up the Henderson guy, and he's in a bunch of pools. I think it's Logan Henderson. So he's a player that went for big money, and if he floated through and didn't get picked up, I think in one of them, maybe that's not his first name, Henderson. Yeah, let's see here. Oh, maybe I was showing the wrong column. Let's see here. Where's my mouse is going wacky over here? Sorry about this. Not cooperating. So yeah, Logan Henderson. So his, look at the, 156, 119, 155. But the rest of them are less. So he got shipped down to the minors. So I think the other issue is that Woodruff pitched pretty good in the minors too. So he's going to present himself there and probably take Priest's spot. But they said Woodruff pitched the other day and pitched pretty good, but he felt some fatigue or something, or tired afterwards, which is kind of interesting, I guess. So but Woodruff is a player that should be rostered. If he was in the free agent pool, he's probably rostered, but he is a player that's not going to be in the other league. So, but he if he somehow slips a grab, or in Shell League in the last start, 5 shutout innings, 2 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts. But like I said, I think that they said, I didn't say it here, but I read it somewhere else that he had some sort of felt tired afterwards. So I don't know what that means. He's fine, and they bring him back in a couple days. But something between him and Henderson, one Henderson's more of a buy and hold longer term, and I think Woodruff is definitely going to have a shot. So, who Patrick is the other player that's most likely going to get bounced from this rotation. He's pitched pretty good. Doesn't get through the fifth inning a lot. Quintana is a little veteran guy, so I think that's kind of an interesting combination there. So, Paddock, nothing there. Mets, nothing. Clay Holmes, Canning. Warren, Yankees, nothing. Phillies. I will say that Andrew Painter, if he's in any leagues, is definitely a player that you should be. They have some injuries. I know what's his name there coming back there, pitcher. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong tab. That's my league. Sorry about that. Philadelphia. Let's see here. So Painter is 37% owned. So he is a player that could be a difference maker through really, really good in his last start at AAA. And I'll bring that up just to put some more shine on him. And I wish I had a room for him, and I doubt that he's in my league, but people are pretty sharp on this guy, and they've been carrying him. So, I guess Sanchez a little banged up, and then Walker obviously would get bounced. Suarez will be back. He pitched pretty good, but he's like a high percentage owned. So anyways, Painter in his last 2 starts pitched 3 innings in both games. He had no walks, 7 strikeouts, 5 hits. His pitch count's only up to in the 30s or something, so he's a couple out, but they might need him, and he is pitching at low A, so that is a different. But he's this guy's just a really tremendous arm, and I think he's really going to be successful. So if he's out there, this would be another week to kind of go after that type of arm. I wrote about him as well on the and Detmers, the thing that I pushed out for on my Substack thing on SI. So if you want to see the written details of it, they're there. So I did document it. I wonder Emerson Hancock says, I wonder if I don't know what his ownership is, but I picked him up in the AL League early on, and he buried me with his first stock. Got sent to the minors, but he's a guy that's should be picked up based on his last 2 starts. Let's see, where is he? Hancock. He's just, look at that, huh? Not even owned in the league. It's kind of interesting because he had pitched well 2 weeks ago, and then he followed it up with a nice game, and I think he set a career high in strikeouts in his last start. So I think that he's a player that did have talent. I think his pedigree, his first round draft pick. I was correct on that. But his numbers for the year still look kind of sketchy because he got buried in that one game. But I think the last 2 starts, he got the first game he pitched at 2/3 of an inning, gave up 6 runs. So he's going to be a hidden player this week. But his last 2 starts been really nice. 11 strikeouts in 11 innings. He gave up 4 runs. 12 base runners, ERA 3.27, 109 WHIP. That's pretty good. And when he was in AAA this year, he had pitched pretty good for his two starts. Last year he struggled with Seattle. So long term he could have a little bit of risk, but he was a guy that potentially had upside. So I think that let's see, what is he? So nobody's owned him. So Seattle. So they only have 5 games this week. Faces the Angels. That's a really good start. So you could get him in a single this week. Next week at the A's, maybe that ballpark. But then he could have doubles after that. Because what's his name? Gilbert suffered a forearm injury. Most likely going to go on the DL, I would think. So but Hancock is, like I said, if you're just looking at the stats, you're going to see the bad numbers. But I would think that he could maybe be in maybe $14, $15. I don't think he's a lock in it, but he does have a little bit of risk. But I think that he is viable. I didn't write about him. I probably didn't, 12-teamer didn't need to see that deep in it, and probably didn't stumble across his name just due to time. St. Louis, not really much there as far as I know. Steven Matz has pitched better, and he has to get his innings up. The only other pitcher I think here is this if on Tampa, how the weekly check-in of Boyle to see how he's doing and how he did in his last start. He has been picked up in a lot of leagues from what I've seen. Joe Boyle, Tampa Bay, let's see here. In his last start, gave up 3 runs in 6 innings with 6 strikeouts, gave up a couple of home runs, but still a guy that's just waiting in the wings. He's probably, I would think that his ownership's getting up there where, because he's in a lot of the pools. Joe Boyle, look at the Athletics, where I am. Where is he? Yeah, because you know what? I can't see him because he's not on the Athletics anymore. That was bright, huh? Sorry about that. I'm wasting some time. Yeah, he's 81% owned, so he's not going to be many leagues, but he's a guy that you want to stash and stuff like that. He still, he had command problems, tough to hit with the A's, and I think he throws pretty good, hard, and he's a guy that's, kind of a Nolan Ryan type of, bulldog type pitcher, and I think he'll get better. He's been in Tama's system. I don't really know the Schultz guy from who they have listed for Toronto. Veteran pitcher, doesn't really have a minor league, probably pitch in another like a foreign country or something, and that's why he's not showing his stats. But he pitched pretty good in the major league debut. He gave up had 8 strikeouts over 4 innings. So unfortunately I'm gonna have to look him up because so when I do this, I'll go to Baseball Reference just to see where if he pitched in career or something. And let's see, Paxton. What's his name? Paxton Schultz. And Paxton Schultz. Let's see. Is this guy probably a guy like for? Let's see. So I'm gonna hide minors, hide majors, hide college. So where was he? Nowhere. He didn't. Some foreign Aruba, 14 innings. He had 17 strikeouts, 1 walk, but that was like a bunch of years ago. So where did he come from? No, I guess that is. I guess the minor league stats weren't showing out. So it's last year. He had a 4.11, walked too many guys, had a 4 walk rate, strikeout rate was okay. Yeah, I don't know why they were loading on the site, but I would think that he looked pretty good, but I actually think he has risk. So if anybody that chased down the Lucas guy and they want to chase another Toronto guy, I think that his command shows a little bit of risk. He might get stretched out a little bit, but no, I'm not going there. Sorry. I don't even think I would take him in an AL league. And then as far as Washington, there's not really much there, but there is one arm that I want to point out in Washington. I know that I drafted him in the Draft Masters, and I'm not and I thought he might be a bullpen arm, but I know that he's pitched pretty good. Jarlin Susanna. He last I looked, he had looked pretty good. So he's up to 5 innings. So he had struck out 10 batters in 4 2/3 2 starts ago, and then last one 3 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, nothing. He throws really hard. His overall season numbers are pretty good, other than he's given up a few too many base runners. Strikeouts are there. I thought he could potentially be the closing option if Finnegan, but he's probably pretty too talented of a guy. 6'6", 235, throws hard, but the guy down the road. So I think that's about it for the players that to walk through as starters. And those are the kind of players I'll be looking at. I don't have a lot of main events. I need back end outfield help and maybe maybe a reliever or something, and try to improve my bullpen. And if I didn't have any injuries, but so that's my walkthrough. A little bit longer, and you got to listen to me. And I'm gonna muff up some names this week. Like I said, it'd be easier for me to do it when I'm away and talk about it. And if there's any feedback you want to get about this, I appreciate it. And I'm going to push this out to everybody. I don't need to do that when it's a video, and I'm not really doing the waiver wire. So, but anybody watch it, appreciate your time. And sorry I did a little different this week, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Bye.